Okay, so we're rolling. Greetings, Kushal. Thank you for participating in this Belief Brief project and sharing some insight regarding the Jain tradition. And just to give some background, the basic purpose of this project is to give people a very brief introduction to different religious traditions. I'm talking with a number of friends from different traditions and just asking a few questions. And it's geared particularly for people who are completely oblivious to different traditions, elders, young people, and additionally. Again, it's comparatively brief. There's in the interfaith movement, there's this thing called speed faithing. And so this is kind of like that, where it's just a few questions to get an introductory insight into the Jain faith.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So are we ready to get started?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So the first question is very simple. What is your religion?
Jain. Jain.
Okay. And I intend to provide very little follow-up questions for the sake of keeping the conversation brief. But is there anything that you'd like to kind of elaborate about the Jain faith for those who may be less aware of it?
Well, I think these questions will do that.
Okay, cool. So we'll go to the next question. When does your religion begin?
Okay. Per our scriptures, there is no beginning and no end to our religion. Okay. It's been there for time immemorial and will stay to the end of time. In terms of historical proof, in India, the oldest Hindu scriptures is called Rig Veda. And even that, in that, there is reference to so-called Shraman tradition. And there are references to idols, which clearly appear to be Jain idols. So in terms of recorded history, we don't know that much, but our scriptures say the religion has been there from the beginning and will remain to the end. And it some ways makes sense because our religion, as we'll come to later, doesn't depend on anybody to operate. It basically operates within laws of nature, as you know, and doesn't require anybody's intervention to operate. Okay.
Okay. Nice. Thank you. So going on to the third question, I think you answer a little bit of this already in answering the previous question. But just to stick with the script, the third question is, who is the founder of the religion? And amidst an absence of a specific...
Right.
Yeah.
See, in terms of a founder like Christ for Christianity or Muhammad for Islam,
sure,
we do not have a founder. We have what are called Tirthankars that appear at different times, and preach the same philosophy, the same way of achieving nirvana or achieving moksha, as we call it, as the previous Tirthankars. So the philosophy or the path does not change from one Tirthankar to another. It just is, it's like a Tirthankar is there, and then after a while, the people tend to, reinterpret what he said, etc., and then a new Tirthankar comes and clarifies everything again, and the religion proceeds, basically. So we don't have a founder, because if it's from time immemorial, you cannot really have a founder, and it's going to go on till the end of time, so you really can't have one. The historical books tend to say the 24th hour Tirthankar, which is the last Tirthankar of this epoch, as the founder, Mahavir. But that is not, the Jain scriptures do not agree with that. They said that Mahavir is the last Tirthankar of this epoch here, and there will be more as time goes, that type of thing. So we do not have a founder to our religion in the sense of, say, Christ for Christianity or Muhammad for Islam.
Okay, thank you. That's actually rather helpful, and it actually clears some blurry understanding that I personally have. So I appreciate that. So going on to question 4, who or what is the highest authority according to your religion?
Okay, now that's a sort of, I mean, I understand where the question is coming from, because that is what
Many of
is
these
there, for example,
many of these questions
in
are
Catholicism.
many,
Go ahead. Okay,
many,
Peter, you go ahead.
excuse me, I'm being impolite. I'm interrupting, but I'm just saying many of these questions are coming from a very admittedly biased perspective and are comparatively inappropriate for a number of different traditions, like the Jain tradition. So I want to recognize that, but just for those who are less aware of that.
Yeah, so let me answer that.
Okay.
We do not have an authority like the Pope in Catholicism or similar authorities. We, as it has happened, there are multiple sects in Jainism, and they have what we call higher ranked monks, which are acharyas, and they are sort of the higher authority within the religion. But if you look at it from a different point of view, since our religion basically says that it is all about your soul, basically, even your body does not belong to you, because when you die, it's going to remain here and soul is going to move on. So the only thing that identifies with you is your soul, and it goes through transmigratory existence and so on. So if you want to look at it from that perspective, then soul is the highest authority, because that is the only thing that matters for each one of us. And each one of us has a different and independent soul that has been independent since the beginning and will remain independent until the end.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. So, so obviously there's an absence of a recognized temporal authority. And just to be clear, for those again who may be less aware, less familiar, and for some people it's kind of mind-boggling to kind of even imagine a faith or a belief without a figurehead. And so, can you elaborate a little bit further about the Jain perspective regarding deity or a kind of like a transcendent authority? I mean, you mentioned soul. Can you kind of like explain a little bit further about the theology with the Jain theology within that?
Oh, okay. See, when you say an authority, I took it to mean a living authority who somehow will give decisions about whatever is going to happen in the religion and so on.
Okay.
See, all of our scholars and monks and so on, when they start their lectures, they say, look, I'm not preaching anything of my own. I'm going to tell you what I understand of Mahavir's teachings. So, Tirthankars. So now you can say that if a Tirthankar were present today, then he would be the highest authority, because then there is no question. He is a chief omniscience, and therefore you can ask him any questions. And I mean, we believe that he is able to see present, past, and future, and able to see the true form of each existing entity. And therefore they can give you the answer. So if you want to go there, that if a Tirthankar was present, then they would be clearly the highest authority. And in any given region, at any given time, there is always only one Tirthankar. There is no more than one, period. I mean, there is no, it's like you cannot have two that have similar authority or similar achievement. There may be other people that have reached omniscience, but they're not Tirthankars. And if a Tirthankar is present, then obviously it is the highest authority. We currently do not have one. The last one, I think, passed away about 2,600 years ago. And the next one will not be there for, let's see, 40, 20, almost 84,000 years.
Wow.
So, and that's all defined as to when they come, what time they will come, and so on and so forth. That's why I'm able to tell you about 84,000 years. I have not seen the future, but our scriptures clearly indicate that after the passing of Mahavir, there will be two, what we call eras of time, 21,000 years each, where the world will keep sinking into more negative, more negative, not thoughts, but the whole existence keeps getting more negative.
Yeah.
I mean, I would give Trump as an example today, but that's not here, not there.
Yeah.
And then after these 42,000 years, a calamitous change would come, rains, etc., would occur, and a new epoch would start where things begin to improve with day by day. So after two more of those of 21,000 years each, so now we have 21,000 times 4, a new Tirthankar will be born, which will be the first Tirthankar of that next epoch. And then it will continue on for many millions of years and so on. So if you are looking for that kind of authority, yes. And see, we don't need any authority because Jainism doesn't convert. So it's not like you have to go to somebody and get their permission that, oh, this person converted and is now a Jain. If you believe in the philosophy, if you behave the way that Tirthankar said you should behave, then you're a Jain, whether you were born a Jain or not. Now, many people, many of us who are born in Jain families, try to follow that path, but there are many others who don't and call themselves Jain, but that really is just a name, it doesn't matter. The Jainism is a path of, behaving according to what the path described by the Tirthankars. So maybe does that answer your question, or it'll give it a little more clarity?
That is very helpful. Yeah. And so it's very interesting as well. So I appreciate that.
Okay.
So continuing on to the next question. What are significant rituals or observances within your religion?
Okay. Okay. There are significant rituals or observances that people do if they go to the temple and so on. And I can describe those, but they're not going to be particularly helpful to people who are not familiar with Jainism. Okay. In terms of our major, what we call, for lack of a better word, festivals, which in our case are not festivals, and I'll explain that a little bit later. But like Christians have Lent, or they have Christmas, and so on and so forth, and they have Easter. In a similar way, Jains have what is called Paryushan, which is an 8-day event, basically. But our festival is for purifying your soul. And basically, you're supposed to refrain from worldly activities. Many people will fast during those 8 days. And many people will fast. They will start 22 days earlier. So at the end of the Paryushan, they have had 30 days of fast. Wow. And in our case, fast is a fast. Okay. You absolutely do not take any food, period. Yeah. No medicines, no food, no nothing. And if you can do it with water or without water. And water is always boiled water, and it can only be taken if you're doing a 8-day or 30-day thing. Then when 1/4 of the day from daybreak to sunset has passed from daybreak, you can start drinking that water, and you must finish 48 minutes before sunset. Okay, so that is all you take. So in our case, which is different from most other religions, that you, the fast is a true fast.
Okay.
You basically do not have any liberty to take anything.
Okay.
Now, many people do less. They will eat only one time at one sitting, or two times at two sittings, because they have to take medication and so on and so forth. So, but in terms of our major festivals, Paryushan is one, and that is for the Shwetambar sect. And there is a corresponding festival for the Digambar sect called Das Lakshan. D as in David, ASLAKSHAN. And that is 10, Das means 10, and Lakshan is 10, 10 how should I say, 10 virtues maybe, of the soul. So they go one at a time. The first day maybe non-violence, then, living simply, and so on and so forth. Not speaking the truth, speaking the truth, or not speaking falsehoods, and so on. And they go in great deal of detail. When we say non-violence, it's not just killing an animal.
Right.
It is non-violence from the mind, from your talk, and your body, basically. So if you have thought ill of me, you already have committed a sin, whether you told anybody or not.
Okay.
And the way we explain that is that if you do things with your body, like you kill somebody or you hurt somebody, and if you get caught, the police or whatever the administrative authority is will punish you. You may be taken to court, etc. Now, if you speak ill all the time, the community punishes you because nobody wants to be associated with you because you are a ill-spoken person.
Sure.
Now, when you have evil thoughts, nobody knows except you, but the karma theory punishes you. Those evil thoughts will create bad karma, and you will have to deal with them at appropriate time.
Okay.
So that is, so during Paryushan, during Das Lakshan, these things are emphasized. People do various kind of austerities and proceed. Now, Shwetambars also have something called Olis, which is the let's see, service to the nine parts of Siddha Chakra. I have to think of English words when I can't come up with them right now. And they come twice a year, and they are 9 days each, or really speaking 10 days each. And there is a prescribed way that you can eat one time in the day. That is, and the food is very limited. You cannot have any oil, any salt, any spices. Particularly, the red spice, red chilies, and so on. And it's much more detailed that I can't explain offhand. People know this, and there are many people who for 9 days will only eat that prescribed food and only once in a day. So they are called Olis, O-L-I, and they come twice a year. So that gives you a perspective of how our festivals are. They are times for renunciation, coming back to your soul rather than, going out and having a party or, whatever else.
Right. So,
and Jainism.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I'm listening.
Okay. In Jainism, eating at night is forbidden all the time. Most of us cannot, we are not advanced enough to do that. Like our monks and so on never eat at night. They always finish 48 minutes before sunset.
Okay.
And then they won't eat anything until 48 minutes after sunset. So eating at night is, religion-wise, is basically forbidden for everybody.
Interesting.
And there are families, believe it or not, that even for, they have, like, they're prescribed whatever they've been told or they follow. A 6-month-old baby, generally is fed at night, because, they cannot eat enough and so on, because they haven't started taking solid food yet. There are many families who will train their children so that at 6-7 months, they stop feeding them at night.
Hmm.
And they survive. They don't die or anything like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it can be done. It's just that most of us are not, deep enough in our faith to do it, that type of thing.
I imagine that involves.
Okay.
So I have two follow-up questions. One is, so just to be clear regarding the observance of Paryushan, you're saying it's a complete fast for 8 days, meaning that during that period there's zero eating, like a person doesn't ingest any food other than perhaps water during that period. Like
if they are doing that, not everybody is able to do that.
Wow. Okay.
See, like for example, I'm not able to do that because I take medications.
Sure.
Okay. So, but I will do a fast on the first day of those 8 days.
Okay.
Then there is something called chaudas that comes in between, which is considered more holy. And then the last day. So I would do 3 fasts, but not consecutively.
Yeah.
I've only done 3 fasts consecutively once in a lifetime.
Interesting.
Because basically the medications I need, I cannot give them up for, multiple days.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my limitation.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, in our community of maybe give or take 150 families, when we have the end of Paryushan, there are usually 30-35 people who have done some kind of fast, and the minimum place for recognition is 3 consecutive days of fast.
Wow.
That is, if you do less than that, like what I do, 3 days but separated, that is not, I mean, that is good for me, but we don't recognize those as, you have done something special.
Okay.
So, but people who have done at least 3 consecutive days, they are recognized that they have done something above and beyond. Okay. And believe it or not, we have had 15-year-olds, 14-year-olds do 8-day fasts.
Wow.
Literally.
Wow.
I mean, they have not eaten. And, I mean, when you do 30 days, it gets very difficult because you lose strength and so on. So people lie down and so on. Yeah. These kids, for those 8 days, they also do all the, the regular daily activities. Yeah. See, it is not prescribed that you just sit down and lie down for 8 days. Okay. The real way of doing it is that you do this, but then you also do the prescribed religious activities. Oh, wow. I have a friend who is now retired, but until 2 years ago when he retired, he would always do 8 days, and he went to work every day, except maybe the last day or last 2 days or whatever. Okay. So people do this, yes.
I like that. So thank you. And then the other question I have is, within the past few years, you mentioned in a previous conversation about attending an observance or a ritual on, I think it was either the new moon or the full moon. And so I'm interested in determining whether within Jainism there is an observance like within Hinduism of Amavasya or Purnima, or within Buddhism of the Uposatha days. Is there something similar like that?
Okay, no. Okay, something got convoluted there. Okay. We do not have particular observances for Amavas or Purnima that I know of. Okay. Now, there are particular Purnimas that have observances because a particular Tirthankar might have done something, or people do certain things on those days. Okay. See, generally what I call chaudas is the day before either Amavasya or Purnima, because see, our is in a moon cycle. So basically we have a 15-day cycle. Mm-hmm. So we go from 1 to 15, and the 14th day of each cycle is considered more holy. Okay. And, I mean, see, the people who were really truly religious and capable, they had 5 such days in 15. The second day, the 5th day, the 8th day, the 11th day, and the 14th day. And if you really think about it, the way it was set up was on the second day, let's say you do a fast, right? On the third, you do a half fast, and let me not go into that kind of detail, but a half fast. You only eat once. On the 4th, you eat twice, and on the 5th, you fast again. And then this continues for all on a continuous basis. And people do that. People now, they just had that what we call parna, which is like breaking of the fast, where people do what is called a varshitap. That is, it lasts for about 400 days. So it's considered, 1 year. And it has a significance attached to our first Tirthankar. So what they do is they fast one day and they eat in 2 sittings the next day, which is called Vyasana. That is, they can only eat in 2 sittings. You can't brush your teeth. Anything that goes into your mouth is a sitting, and you have to be sitting doing that. So they will eat in these 2 sittings, and next day will be a fast, and 2 sittings, and next day a fast. And if by chance your 2 sitting day comes to be a chaudas, the 14th day, then that day you have to do a fast. So basically, these people over a period of 400 days do over 200 fasts, and on the days they eat in 2 sittings, basically. And this is, a friend of mine had just gone to Florida because one of their cousins had done it, and even in this country, probably there are 50 or 60 people probably who have done it overall. I can't name them all, but this is done. And if you go to India, there are thousands that have done it.
Wow. That's fascinating, actually. So that gives, I think, some palpable insight into the austerity and the discipline that's involved within the Jain practice as well. So I appreciate that.
Right.
So let's go on to the next question. What does your religion teach about outsiders?
There are no outsiders.
Okay. Yeah.
They literally are not, because, if I consider, look at it this way, Peter, if I consider me to be only responsible for my soul, then everybody is an outsider. That is the deepest sense, in the most core value, right? My brother, my sister, everybody is an outsider because they are something different than me and my soul, right? Now, let us say you want to come to our practice. All we say is, please come, observe the practice. You can participate in it, provided you follow our rules. You can't come with shoes in. You have to have clean clothes. You have to have special type of clothes for being able to enter the main sanctum, and which we follow and you follow. Right. So that you are not born a Jain does not prevent you from doing anything in our system. Now, don't get me wrong. If you go to India and suddenly try to go in, they might have a fit. Not because it is prevented by the religion, but they don't know who you are, and they don't know whether you have followed the prescribed practices. Yeah. Like, you can tell me that these clothes are new and therefore they're okay. Well, I don't know that. I have to trust you that it is what you say it is. But if you follow our path or want to follow our path, we are happy to welcome you with open arms. We don't actually, if you come like on our Sunday service and you want to participate or you want to observe, you observe, and then when the food is served, you eat. Of course, it's vegetarian, but so in that sense, and we do not have, like Jewish people have a word for them, Jews and Gentiles, or Muslim religion has, I don't know what they call their followers, but the non-followers are kafirs. And I've heard things like that it's okay to kill a kafir. in our case, they had to actually coin a term recently to describe non-Jains. It's called a Jain.
Huh.
When it's many times put in front of a word,
Right.
it makes it negative.
Right. Ahimsa.
You know, that's just a part of the language. And so they began to say the word like a Jain. When I was a little kid, I never heard of that word.
Interesting.
I've only heard it in the last 5-10 years.
Wow.
Because there are many intermarriages and so on. So now they've begun to say that, okay, he is married into a Jain family, that kind of thing. So in that sense, when you say outsiders, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you came the first time, we will want to know that, hey, I mean, why are you here? Are you here to learn? Do you want to participate? What do you want to do? But we won't prevent you from, coming in unless, we sense that, okay, like if you want to wear your shoes in our main area, we are going to be very upset.
Yeah.
So, but the point is that when you say, how does it teach or treat outsiders? There are no outsiders, because we believe that you have a soul which is as pure as any Jain or any ant or any elephant or any lion. You are in your existence because of your karma. I'm in my existence because of my karma. The ant is in its existence because of its karma. So basically, at the end of the day, your soul is just as pure in its pure form and the same as mine and anybody else's. So if you look at it in a broad light, you're no different than anybody else or any Jain. Now, these things come in because we all have organized religions and, we want to preserve those and so on and so forth. But in the most fundamental tenets of Jainism, there are no outsiders, period.
Okay. I like that. I appreciate that.
Okay.
I appreciate that notion of no outsiders and the purity of soul being recognized. So,
and see, if you have outsiders, then you have to have conversion, because you want to make outsiders into insiders. We don't have conversion, we don't have outsiders.
Yeah. Cool. So that leads,
okay.
Yeah, and that leads us, I think, nicely into our concluding question, which is, what are the gems in your religion that you treasure? The teachings.
Okay. See, each person that you talk to will give you probably a different answer.
Sure.
Yeah. Because gems are what I consider gems. Another person may consider something else to be gems.
Okay.
I'll give you mine, a few of them. Okay. First is the nonviolence in its broadest and deepest sense.
Sure.
At least that is what is taught. Now, how much you can do is up to you. But what the religion says is there is nonviolence and forgiveness in total, basically. No exceptions. Okay, that's the first one. Second one is an acceptance within the religion for multiple viewpoints. It's called Anekantvad. What our Tirthankar said was that since your knowledge is limited, whatever you see is not complete, and therefore you must listen to the other viewpoints. Okay? And it doesn't mean you accept them, but there is no, no prevention that you can't listen to somebody else. Sure. You don't have to follow it, you don't have to agree to it, but the viewpoints from different perspectives are accepted and recognized. That yes, they exist. The only time you don't have that is when you have achieved omniscience. But then there cannot be multiplicity of points because you are able to see the true form of everything.
Yeah.
And you are able to propound those. But for anybody below that level, you are told that, look, it is called an ekantvad. And, I mean, in our case, when people give lectures or people speak about something, they say it's very important for you to know what is that person's perspective. From which angle is he coming at you? So that you can understand what he's saying. If he's coming from the point of view that he hates you, then it doesn't matter what he says, because it's coming from the point that he hates you. So the words and all that, the same words can be used by your mom who loves you, but now their meaning is different. See, that's the multiplicity of viewpoints, sorry. Now, the third one, I would say that, our religion is totally dependent on the laws of nature, the karma theory. Basically, there is nobody sitting in judgment. There is I've heard of the concept of a benevolent God in Islam, that, the God may decide that, okay, he doesn't have to punish you for this or that or whatever. We don't have that concept. Our gods, when they become Siddh, from becoming Aryan, becoming omniscient, and then achieve Nirvana, they do not interfere in any way, shape, or form with anybody's life, period. So you are responsible for your deeds. Now, this can happen that you, let's say in anger or whatever, you did something wrong, but then you recognized it and you said, I made a mistake. So now you can do penance, or you can really feel bad about it and say, go to a temple, talk to your soul, whatever, and say that, look, I made this mistake. I'm really sorry about this. So now the karma theory by itself, not by somebody else's intervention, the sin that you have committed, its result may be minimized. But that depends on how deep your faith is and how deeply are you mean that. Just saying it is not enough. Let's say you did some harm to somebody and saying, oh, really, I'm sorry, but you really didn't feel anything. Well, it doesn't do you any good. If you really felt it, that you did something wrong, and try to tell yourself that I won't do it again, then there is meaning to it. Yeah. Similarly, it can be, it can be the flip side. Let us say you cheated somebody, and then you stand up and say, look how smart I am that I was able to, do this to this guy. Yeah. Well, now you compounded your sin. Sure. Because not only you did something wrong, but you actually were happy doing it. And gave yourself a lot of credit for being exceptionally smart. So that to me is a gem, mainly because it just basically removes all other interferences. So when you say that, okay, somebody might, something happens and they get a lawyer, and the lawyer is able to manipulate things and, get them off on a technicality or whatever. Well, in karma theory, there is no technicality. It is what it is, So what I feel with that is that I don't have to be begging to someone that they may forgive me. What I have to do is clean my soul on my own. And nobody else can clean it except me. I have to do it. So suddenly, we didn't get into it. There is nobody to blame for anything that happens to me. We all do it. We are taught from the childhood, when we fall down, the mother hits the earth saying, oh, the earth hit you, or hurt you. So let's, do this. But the reality is that I fell down because my legs were not ready yet to have me, walk properly. Yeah. And so basically, anything that happens to me is due to my own karma, and whoever the person or the object that happens to, it looks like that it did it to me, that is what we call nimit. And the nimit is like this. The way I would explain it is, let us say you have a great thought and you write a great novel. you cannot write that novel without pencil and paper or pen and paper or whatever you choose.
Right.
But nobody gives credit and Nobel Prizes to pencil and paper. They are simply implements.
Sure.
The Nobel Prize is given to the person who thought and wrote and, those novels or those things. It's the same thing, that even though it appears that the other person may have done it, they happen to be present because it needed to happen to you. And they just happen to be there. I mean, think of a car accident. You go and, you have somebody has a car accident. Now think about it. The other person did this or that, right? Now the question is, we all, when we start the car, we do this, we stop at a light, we do all this, or go to the bathroom. You could have gone 2 minutes later or 2 minutes earlier, and that person would not have been there at exactly the same location, right? Even 1 minute earlier. They would have either been past or behind or whatever. But they were there at that time because that accident was meant to happen to you. And the same thing about the other person. For you were there mainly, not mainly, only because that accident needed to happen to this other person. And, a drunk driver hits you and turns you into a paraplegic. Of course, we blame that drunk driver. We definitely do and all that. But Jain religion says, now, what the police does and the court does, that's a separate issue. But in terms of your soul, you were supposed to become paraplegic at that time. And therefore, the drunk driver came and hit you. So it's a very difficult concept to accept in our regular life. But think about it for a minute deeply, that if you accept it, how easy the life becomes.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult to be mad at yourself for a long time. And they teach you, our religion, when you go deep enough, that you also need to forgive yourself for the mistake you make, because otherwise you will be living in guilt forever.
Yeah.
So, but what I want to say is, we were talking about gems, is that they teach you, if you accept it and deeply believe it, that everything that happens to you is because of you. That everything else around you just happens to be there because that was supposed to happen to you.
Yeah.
So good or bad, we don't give, we are not that, we are very quick to blame. We are not there much to credit that, a teacher helped you and therefore you became so good or whatever. Yeah. But the reality is both ways. It's what is deemed or destined to happen to you is what happens to you.
Yeah. I remember when I first encountered that teaching explicitly in my spiritual path, I feel an experience of freeing and liberation. And
right.
I can recognize how many people, particularly those who experience suffering and attribute that suffering to oppression or other conditions that are being done by others. I can understand how those individuals would perceive that principle as being off-putting or counterintuitional or something like that.
Right.
People want to be consoled and kind of cuddled when experiencing suffering. But the consideration in recognizing how we contribute to our conditions, it's actually empowering, because when we blame others, we're putting that power into other people's hands. And so when we recognize how we contribute to that, we are empowering ourselves because we are able to do something about it accordingly. So it's actually a very empowering philosophy or principle.
Right, it is, but it's very difficult because we teach our children right from the beginning this cause and effect thing.
Yeah.
That you did this and therefore this happened, Yeah. Now you have to do it. You have to tell a child to study and so on and so forth to some degree. But as you get older, to recognize that makes your life a lot simpler.
Yeah.
Because it is what it is. You do the best you can with the information you have, and then what happens, happens.
Yeah.
Nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
That type of, I mean, when I say nothing you can do about it is after you've done everything you could. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, like a child gets cancer. Why? What, what did it do yet? It barely born, and a 3-year-old gets cancer.
Right.
But once you accept karma theory, then it says, okay, something was there in its past lives which resulted in karmas that required this kind of suffering. Now you don't have to blame anybody. You just treat the child as well as you can. You give them all the treatment that that's within your power, and then you leave it to the higher power.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, okay, I guess, does that answer your question?
We've gone way over the time limit, but I very much appreciate your generosity in sharing this insight and the spiritual wealth from the Jain faith and the Jain tradition. I think it's very valuable. So,
I mean, in terms of gems, we can keep talking about it, but I think 1, 2, or 3 are probably enough
Sure.
for for the kind of discussion we are having.
Yeah.
And I hope it's useful.
Yeah. Yeah. So I appreciate that, and I think we can wrap it up with that. And just want to say thank you again for participating in this and sharing your experience and insight.
Okay, very good, Peter. When the final document is done, be sure to send me a copy.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm going to stop recording.
All right.